how to comp for Novation. So this is one of the most common questions that I get asked, right? And believe it or not, it's actually easier to determine the value of a property for Novations. And there's a couple reasons. One, you don't have to factor in a cash buyer. Okay, so you don't have to factor in a cash buyer. You don't have to factor in repairs. ARV's not a part of the picture when it comes to comping for Novations. So I can give you guys just like a little quick and dirty. Now, I'm going to be making some more in-depth YouTube videos on this, but here's a little something for right now. Okay, so when you're comping for Novations, okay, the first thing you got to look for is you got to look for the most similar recent sold property in the area, right? I call this the North Star. Okay, so this is the one that is most like the subject property. Now, this is one reason why it's so important to gather as much information about the property as you can in the discovery phase. Okay, there's 3 phases: discovery, anchor, and deliver phase. Okay, so in the discovery phase, get all the info you can about the property, because then you can make the most realistic apples to apples comparison. So you find your North Star, you find your one that is most like the property, and then you want to look for another 3 or 4 that are the second, third, and fourth most similar ones. Okay, now depending on the area, there may be a bunch that are just like your subject property. If you're in an area where there's a bunch of similar properties, hey, it's your lucky day, because then it's easy to comp. Now, if it's more rural or a smaller town, or your property is more of a unicorn where there's not a lot of other properties that are a direct comparison to yours, then you got to use a little bit more guesswork. Okay, so basically, get your North Star, the one that's most similar. Then you want to take the other ones and like write them down, right? And then you kind of have to do the little quick math in your head of, all right, this one's a little bit nicer than mine, this one's a little bit bigger, this one's a little bit smaller, and you got to factor it in. And you basically need to just take an average and figure out what you think your property is going to sell for, okay, with the information that you have. So that's how you comp it to try to find it. And you can also look at the most similar ones that are listed. You got to take that into factor as well. But that's not the most important thing, because the most important thing is negotiating the lowest price possible, right? So you have a decent idea of what it'll sell for, but you need to get it as far below that as you possibly can. Okay, so the way to do that is you're looking at all the cash comps. So all the lowest comps in the area where the stats are still similar to your property, but maybe the condition is just a lot worse. Okay, so those we use for the low anchors, right? And that's where we get the narrative, because here's the thing. Cash buyers pay what cash buyers pay. Okay, it costs the same to remodel a disgusting kitchen as it does a clean and dated kitchen. You're still knocking out the cabinets, you're still putting in new cabinets, you're still putting in new countertops, you're still putting in new appliances, whether there's no appliances or there's just old dated ones. So that's how we negotiate with it, is by using the low anchors. Okay, now here's the key. Whether you're setting us up or whether you're doing it yourself, okay, the key is you just give them a low tentative range. You don't say, hey, we're gonna pay this, we're gonna pay that. You're kind of speculating. Hey, I'm not sure where the final number is gonna come, but it looks like cash buyers and investors are buying in this area somewhere between X and Y, okay? And X and Y has got to be your low comp numbers, okay? And if they freak out, you have room to back out and say, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm not saying that's what we're going to offer. I'm just looking at the data. And that's what it looks like other investors are paying in this area. You know, I'm going to pass it over to the decision makers. Of course, they're going to make the final call. The decision makers being us, right? So you got to hit them with the low anchor. Now, the formula for max allowable offer is 90% of current condition value. So that's the price that it'll sell for on the market in its current condition, quickly. Okay, so 90% of that, we'll use 300,000 as an example. So 90% of 300,000 would be 270. Then minus at least 30,000. Okay, so the 30,000 is for the profit. You don't want to do these deals trying to make less than 30,000. Okay? It's too much work, too many things can go wrong. You can end up with a lot less than that, right? So, for a house that's worth 300,000 as is, you can pay up to 240,000. Now, in this example, the low anchors, we're looking at the cash sales. And those could be anywhere, let's say the ARV on this thing's 350. The cash sales could be anywhere from, the mid to high ones all the way up into the low twos, right? So that's where a real cash offer is going to come in at. Now, we can pay up to 240. Now, obviously, you want to get the thing as low as you can, because the lower you get it, the more value you can add to the seller and the more certainty you have. And obviously, it's a for-profit business, right? We never make any bones about that with the seller. They understand we're in it to make a profit, right? So you negotiate as low as you can, and the max allowable is that formula that we just mentioned. 90% of current condition value minus at least 30K. So people ask, like, hey, what percentage of the ARV can you offer? Well, ARV is not even a factor in this, so it's the wrong way of thinking of it. Okay, what percentage of the current condition value can you offer? Well, it kind of depends, right? Because if the house is 120,000, you still got to be at a pretty steep discount to make your 30K. But if you're dealing with a house that's 400, 500, 600,000, or in some cases over $1 million, right now we've got one we're selling for 1.8 million. Okay, our projected profit on that is 160,000. Okay, so but we're still only making a little bit over a 10%. Actually, a little bit less than a 10% profit at 1.8 million, right? We're making like 9%, 8%. And that's after the realtors get paid and everything like that. So it's the wrong way to think of it, to think of what percentage of the value can you offer. You have to look at it through the lens of 90% of the current condition is what you're going to net with a zero profit, and then you build in at least 30K. So, hope that's helpful.